All right, let's have our Southwest Division preview here. Mo Dakhil, let's talk about the Rockets. Let's start off here with Houston after their massive offseason, adding Kevin Durant. They signed back Clint Capella. They get Dorian Finney-Smith, big 3-and-D target, Josh Okogie as well. They lose Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, Cam Whitmore. They bring back some guys as well, re-signing them long-term. The losses, if they feel like they hurt, but they don't hurt when you look at Kevin Durant, DFS coming in. And so with Houston now, Mo, you look at this team, the roster, the rotation, it feels a lot more beefy around the appealing supporting pieces they had last year. Şengün now has more support. Van Vliet, Amen Thompson. KD just changes the whole complexion of this entire team when you plug him into it.
I mean, when you just look at the situation, like this is a team that's loaded. They're going to have the defense. Last year, they didn't have, I mean, the offense was really tough in the half court, especially down the stretch in clutch games. Now you add a guy like Kevin Durant, it opens up the floor for Alperen Şengün. Like you're going to double Şengün now in the post, and now you're going to come off who? KD? No, you're probably going to come off Dorian Finney-Smith, but that's going to create rotations and kickouts and opportunities there. Like I think there's a lot of stuff to like about this team when you're looking at the way they're set up. They can play big, they can play small. We saw the two big lineup last year with Şengün and Adams. I think there's a lot of beautiful stuff there. They even have when they went and got Clint Capella, Kevin, I was like, really? You need a third big? It was like, okay, this is just a just in case measure situation. Like they're kind of set up pretty nicely across the board with all their pieces, with depth, with defense, with offense. Like I kind of like the way they've put this whole thing together. And more importantly, with a guy like Jabari, if they feel like they need to go make a move, they have a piece that they can to make another move if they have to. Like they have another one in the holster if they want to go say, hey, we got to go after another guy. They got a piece that they can make happen, and it'll be really interesting to see how this all works out. I will be fascinated to see what the half court offense looks like.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I think you're spot on there, Mo. If they have to make a move, they have pieces to go make a move, and we'll see how the rotation shakes out exactly. Ime Udoka said in an interview this month that the fifth starter will be decided at training camp, so it could be DFS, could be Jabari Smith. We'll see in that fifth spot, but ultimately, I think you nailed it with the biggest question for the Rockets this year. To me, it's, are the Rockets potent enough on the perimeter? Because last season they were last in the NBA in 3-point rate during the playoffs. They were 28th during the season. So they were a low frequency 3-point shooting team. And additionally, the other problem with perimeter creation is pick and roll ability. This team was bottom 10 in the NBA in pick and roll scoring efficiency. And you look at the other teams in the bottom 10, a lot of bad teams or bad offenses. Pelicans were last. Hornets, Magic, Nets, Jazz, Wizards, Raptors, Rockets, Blazers, Sixers. The Rockets are the one, like, really good team in that mix. The Magic have a very poor offense. They had a lot of injuries last year as well, with Paolo in and out of the lineup, Franz in and out. But the Rockets, they're like the odd team in that group where you felt like this team has a chance to make a little bit of a run. They didn't, in part because of their offensive deficiencies. Do you feel like KD is enough of a solve there, Mo, with helping the 3-point shooting and helping the pick and roll creation, or no?
I think he helps. I don't think he helps a ton in terms of the pick and roll creation. I don't really consider him too much of a pick and roll guy, but I think it opens up the opportunity when they do run a Van Vliet Şengün pick and roll. The help stays closer to KD than coming over, and I think that will open up those opportunities in the pick and roll. But I feel like him just coming in and all of a sudden they're going to be a pick and roll monster, and this team's going to be a pick and roll efficient team. I'm not 100% convinced. It'll be interesting. I think you do run into some problems, right? Like the other key for them is like Ahmed Thompson has to be able to improve as a shooter, right? And I don't know if that's going to happen just overnight. And really in one off season he's going to be that much better. So I think you have to kind of hope though that there's progress in that area. You know, that's where I think it becomes interesting when you have Dorian Finney-Smith, you know, and he'll help spread the floor a little bit. Like it becomes a interesting situation where they can shrink the floor, or excuse me, pack the paint because of that, you know, with the lack of shooting out there sometimes. That's going to be the question. That's why I'm curious to see what they do in their half court offense and see how they kind of put this whole thing together.
I mean, to me, it's very, very important that Reed Shepherd figures it out, that he becomes a guy in this rotation because of his 3-point shooting ability off the catch, off the dribble, off a movement, but also because he can create. He can be a guy in pick and roll who can hit a pull up three if the defense goes under the screen. He can make the right pass if he gets into the teeth of the defense. And so I think Fred VanVleet, as good as he is as a veteran, he is not that reliable shooter. He is not that reliable weapon from the perimeter. Reed Shepherd has the potential to be that. That's why they took him a year ago in the draft in the top 3. That's why they have held on to him and not given up on him. It's why there's belief internally in that front office that he can become the guy they need, because look at the rest of this team. I mean, Katie, as you said, Mo, he's obviously one of the greatest scorers ever, still an elite perimeter player as well. DFS helps with the shooting. Jabari Smith, Tari Eason, hopefully those guys can be consistent. Amen Thompson, hopefully he can even be a mild threat. I'm not optimistic there. And Şengün, he shot well in Eurobasket, but how does that translate to a deeper 3-point line is a question as well. And obviously Adams and Capella, they are not shooters. There's a lot of like non-shooter. Okogie's not a great shooter either. There's some non-shooters on this roster, but ultimately I think this team helped. Is it enough? We'll see. And that's where I think with Houston, their swing pieces are those young guys. Like, will Reed Shepherd figure it out? Is Amen Thompson going to be a reliable corner shooter? Is LP ready to contribute? Like, these young guys are going to answer these questions about whether or not the Rockets need to make another move in order to be a team that's actually seriously an NBA Finals
Correct.
contender, or just a true contender. They're a contender. I think they belong in that conversation, but are they actually a favorite? Are they up there with Denver and OKC? Are they up there, or are they just a level below those teams? It's the youth that's going to determine that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's a critical question in that area. I think they're a top 3 team in the West. I don't think I actually have them behind both Denver and OKC. I mean, OKC is on another level. Like, if we're being honest and looking at the way they're kind of set up and situated, the way Denver is kind of put together with Jokic and then adding Cam Thomas is, I think it's really excuse me, Cam Johnson. We talked all restricted free agency, so now Cam Thomas is on my brain. But I think adding Cam Johnson, I think there's a little more proven tact there with that stuff. With the Rockets, adding KD helps with firepower, but again, we have some unproven guys that have to prove themselves as we go through the course of the season.
All right, let's talk about the Grizzlies, Mo. They had a busy offseason as well. They added Ty Jerome, Jock Landale, KCP. They got back in the Desmond Bain trade involving the Orlando Magic. They lose him. They lose Jay Huff. Luke Kennard walked as well. I love their draft. Cedric Coward, Small, and Meshack in the second round. They hired Isola as their head coach as well. The Grizzlies, I mean, the big question now with them is Jaren Jackson Jr. and his health after offseason surgery. When does he come back? But ultimately, you look at this team, their rotation, Edie, Triple J, once he's back, Jalen Wells, KCP, Ja Morant, and then a really deep team with like a lot of guys that are deserving of rotation minutes on some team out there in the NBA that are not going to get it. I don't feel like this team is actually going to make a lot of noise in the Western Conference, but there's a lot of individual pieces that I like. And so I view this team this season as like an evaluation year. Who's going to be our long-term fixtures around Ja Morant and Jaren Jackson Jr. and hopefully Zach Edey as well moving forward into the future?
Yeah, they need these guys to kind of all step up. I mean, besides obvious thing across the board is good health, right? Like for everybody on this team. Like, we've had a lot of time where Ja misses games, and Jackson now with the toe thing. Like, we'll see how it kind of plays out, but it's important that they stay healthy. And then on top of that, it's figure this stuff out. Like, I love the young guys. I love Jalen Wells. I Scottie Pippen Jr. I like the way he plays. I like the depth they have. Now, what's the offense going to look like? Last year they took a lot of the pick and roll away from Ja, so then it became a situation where what kind of offense are we running? Isola, we'll see what he kind of puts in terms of that. How much motion? How much is his movement off of the stuff? How much of it works well for Ja, and what doesn't? Because he's not a guy like I'm going to worry about too much off the move and things like that. Like, this is a guy that needs the ball in his hands a lot more. Let's see if they kind of go back to that in that situation. And then I just want Jaren Jackson Jr. to kind of deliver on the promise where he puts it all together, offense and defense, and be that guy where he's that true second option. When you send Bain out, in the trade, obviously we understand the cap stuff and things like that. You need Jackson to step up and be the true second option offensively and really deliver for them in a big way. If this team's going to go anywhere besides health, it's Jaren Jackson Jr. really stepping up and showing, like, yeah, I can be the second option. And on off nights for Ja, I can carry this team and take us further. And I think that's going to be an important thing as they get going and move forward into the season.
Yeah, I think that's spot on with Triple J. He needs to take that leap offensively, especially with Desmond Bain now gone. And look, I think the dude is a magnificent defensive player. That's for sure. You wish he rebounded more. Offensively, he's made progress every year. I wouldn't expect that to stop necessarily. They have good role players. Ty Jerome's a good role player. Scottie Pippen Jr., KCP, Jalen Wells. Like, they have a John Conchar, Cam Spencer. Like, they have a lot of like quality supporting pieces, but they need that true second star next to Ja Morant. And that to me comes down to, is Cedric Howard gonna look like one of the steals of the draft or not? Cedric Howard is a guy that I was extremely bullish on in the draft this year. I feel like Memphis got a steal in him in the middle of the first round. Does he resemble the guy that they believe he can be as somebody who was near the top of their board this year, as somebody that some teams perceived as the greatest steal in the draft class, but a huge unknown? Played only 6 games last year at Washington State because of a severe shoulder injury that lasted long enough to keep him out of Summer League for that matter as well. Does Coward show flashes of that second star next to Ja Morant? To me, the youth on this Grizzlies team, I don't think they're a contender. To me, they're kind of a wandering team. That's the tier I'd put them in, as a wanderer's tier, because it's about finding their identity alongside Ja Morant, brand new head coach as well. As you said, Mo, what kind of system does he install for this team? But finding the guys that are going to support Ja Morant or become the best guy in the team if Ja never reaches his peak level again. Like, that's still a question with them. Like, that Golden State series was a long time ago at this point. A lot has happened with Ja since then. Suspensions, injuries, declining at rim frequency as well. Him saying he's not going to dunk anymore, even though that turned out not to be true. Like, I just, there's a lot of questions with this roster. And to me, I think I don't want to put too much on Cedric Howard. Like, he's just a rookie. But I think G.G. Jackson, Cedric Howard, some of these young guys on the team, they need to start showing that there's star potential there to feel like the Grizzlies can get back to being that next best team as a contender again, because they're not in that conversation right now. They're just wanderers right now.
Yeah, they're sadly like one of these teams that we look at and kind of go like, damn, they missed their window. Like, that's what it feels like right now in that moment. And I think that's the situation. That's why I also get nervous just in general labeling this team is next, because so much changes so quickly. With the way that Golden State Memphis series was going, we were already waiting for next season, going like, all right, this is the year for Memphis to really get going, right? It's so hard to kind of continue that momentum for a million different ones. This one, they kind of sort of shot themselves in the foot a little bit with some of the off the court stuff. And I think that kind of became the problem for them and led to those issues.
Shot themselves in the foot, Mo.
Yeah, I was like, in my head, I had it teed up and I didn't. And in the moment was like, oh, I probably shouldn't use that, but couldn't come up with another phrase quick enough. So I do apologize, but yes.
I thought it was funny. It made me chuckle.
That was if anybody was, that was going on in my head in real time, was like, oh crap. I'm going to say this. Oh wait, no, I shouldn't. And then it was like, oh no, I said it. What you gonna do?
Let, let's talk about the Dallas Mavericks here. They had a interesting offseason here. Of course, they trade Luka in February, and then they win the number 1 pick and they draft Cooper Flag. Kyrie Irving out for some amount of time with a torn ACL. They signed D'Angelo Russell, hopefully hold down the fort. In the meantime, with Kyrie out and after losing Spencer Dinwiddie, they've re-signed Kyrie anyway. They re-signed PJ Washington and Dante Exum. And now you get this weird roster that, in the vision of Nico Harrison with their lineups here, they have 2 big potential, Lively or Gafford plus AD. They can play with 1 big. They have a bunch of wings and forwards, Cooper Flag, Klay Thompson, Max Christie, Caleb Martin, PJ Washington, Najee Marshall. Like, there's a lot of options at the wing and forward spots. And then at guard, like, you don't have Kyrie, but you bring in D'Lo. Brandon Williams closed last year fairly well. Jaden Hardy, Dante Exum deeper off the bench as well. And Najee Marshall as well can run a little bit of a point for you too. This team, Mo, I'm not totally certain what to make of them. I see the vision. I get what Nico sees. But at the same time, I can't help but feel like this has a chance of getting even uglier this coming season.
Yeah, I don't necessarily understand who's gonna be distributing the ball. I know they got D'Lo out there, but, like, I don't know, there's no real true playmaker where I'm like, "Oh, wow, this is a great creator." They're gonna use Cooper Flag a lot, I think, to try to create and
Yeah,
be more on ball, and I'm scared by that. He looks more like I'm ready to attack on the second side than,
I
know,
agree.
than being a guy that can initiate the offense. I don't think it's early, but I don't think his handles are tight enough right now where he's gonna when he's going in and night out and trying to
Mo,
be
we
the
saw
lead
how efficient he
playmaker.
was at summer league. Like, he it was a struggle scoring in isolation. It just was
Yeah,
for him, and
yeah,
that's not a knock on
yeah,
him. He's an
and
excellent prospect, but every rookie is going to have flaws, and you can't put too much on his plate and expect winning results as a rookie.
but, like, you're expecting that and expecting him to be a playmaker for the team is kind of where I'm concerned with what they're going with going forward. Like, it's a little bit of a weird lineup. Obviously, it gets better once they have Kyrie back and healthy, and whether
If
that's, whether
if
that's at some point this year or at all this season, right? Like, if but I understand the future viewpoint of it. But for this season, I just look at it going like, man, it's tough. And then I can't get excited if you bring in D'Angelo Russell out as your starter. Like, I know he's a gap situation and all that stuff, but it's like I can't get juiced up for that stuff. I like what Brandon Williams did. I like the wings. I thought Max Christie was really good for them after the trade. Najee Marshall was really good down the stretch and showed some flashes. PJ Washington, I think, definitely earned his extension. But I just look at this team and I'm just like, I don't really know what you guys are.
Yeah, I mean, to me, if I put them in a tier, it'd be Wanderers. I think they are very, very, very much wandering right now, figuring out who they are. Nico Harrison may think they'll be contenders. I think that's a bit insane to believe that with this team. There's just too many ifs. If Kyrie Irving returns, if Kyrie Irving gets back to himself during the season, if Anthony Davis stays healthy, if Cooper Flag is like a high impact winning player as a rookie, if Lively stays healthy. I mean, if Klay Thompson doesn't continue to regress at his in mid 30s at this point, like, there's so many ifs up and down the board with this Dallas Mavericks roster. If D'Lo is competent, they don't stop with the
That's the
Mavericks, and this is in a
that's
conference, Mo, that is loaded. The West is loaded, and you already have a star out, and any team that has a star that misses 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month, that could mean you are suddenly in the play-in or out of the playoffs entirely, and they already have one of their stars sidelined. I just think it's going to get uglier, Mo. I hate to be a negative Nancy with Dallas. I want them. I want Mavericks fans to have their love restored in the team. I think that they're some of the best fans in all of basketball. But just from my seat here, I have a hard time looking at the situation and thinking, oh, this is going to get really beautiful this year. I think it could get uglier, and I think it could get to the point that my gut feeling when the Mavericks won the lottery and it meant Cooper Flag was going to go to Dallas, my first instinct was like, wow, this sucks for him, because he's going
Mm.
to a team that their fans have left the franchise, that they feel betrayed after trading Luka, the immense expectations for you in a situation that is trying to win, but I don't think that's realistic. I think it's going to get really frustrating for the existing Mavericks fans this year. And for Cooper, I wish he were on a team where they had a clear identity. This team does not. And that just is disappointing to me for a guy who is an unbelievable young player and an unbelievable prospect.
It's not even that, it's just have the ability to let me grow as a player and figure
Yeah.
out my place in the league. Like, it's not necessarily not coming in and right off the bat, we know exactly what Cooper Flag is in this league, It's to be honest, there's a lot of potential, and there's a lot of stuff where it's like, "Hey, he can be really one a great player in this league for the Mavs," but we just don't know who he is, and then landing in that spot where it's like, "Okay, we need you to do this, this, and this. You need to make sure AD's getting his touches. You're going to be, let's just in the world where Kyrie comes back and he's healthy and normal. Okay, you're going to be playing off Kyrie. How does that look? How does that work for you? And whatnot. Like, there's going to be a level of trying to figure this stuff out on the fly for him, and there's not a lot of room for error because this team's trying to win. And I think that's the one thing that makes the landing spot a little bit difficult for him. On the flip side, this team's trying to win. He's going to have an opportunity to
Yeah.
compete, and it's like this is we are in it. One way we're throwing him in the fire, another way we're putting you in a situation where you're not going to be just get complacent, so used to losing all the time, the way some of these other guys end up on situations. Like, come on, man, Brandon Miller and Charlotte, like, what are they going to matter? Right? Like, that's it's a lot of room for him to grow, and he's going to get opportunities, but also like he's not going to play a meaningful game for what, another season or two, and that'll be 3 years, 4 years in the league before he's played a game that matters.
Totally fair. Totally fair. I mean, there's pros and cons, and for Cooper, he is in a situation trying to win, and maybe it turns out to be a good thing for him and Dallas, and a lot of that's going to have to do with the health of those veterans. So we'll see how that plays out. Let's talk about the Spurs. The Spurs had a busy offseason. Of course, they drafted Dylan Harper and Carter Bryant in the 25 draft. They added a bunch of centers: Bismack Biyombo, Luke Cornett, Kelly Olynyk. They signed Lindy Waters III as well. They lost Chris Paul, Blake Wesley, among others, hired Mitch Johnson from interim to head coach, which of course is, after Greg Popovich spending half his life basically as San Antonio Spurs head coach, that is probably the biggest change of all of them, Mo. But would you look at this roster that Mitch Johnson is going to be coaching around Victor Wembanyama now? A lot of options, a lot of flexibility. This is when I put together this projected rotation, it's kind of hard to figure out who the starters are going to be, because when you look at wings and forwards, Harrison Barnes, Keldon Johnson, Jeremy Sohan, Carter Bryant, Devin Vassell. Then you add in the guards, Stephon Castle and Dylan Harper behind De'Aaron Fox. There's a lot of guys, a lot of different combinations. And that's not to mention one of their best shooters on the team, Champagnie. It's not to mention veterans like Kelly Olynyk. They just signed Bismack Biyombo. There's a lot of ways this roster could go. What's your vision for the Spurs? How would you like to see this starting lineup develop around Victor Wembanyama this season?
Well, I think it's tough because, like, you want to add shooting and you want to make sure you have a good amount of shooting to kind of spread the floor around around Victor. But at the same time, like, you want Stephon Castle to play a bunch, right? Like, I thought he was great. Yeah, for them, I thought it was, deserving as rookie of the year. But I think there's a lot of promise there as well. And obviously, you have the young guys between Carter Bryant and Dylan Harper, and you want those guys to get a ton of minutes. But I think in terms of the starting lineup of Victor Wembanyama, I think this is probably about the right starting lineup. And I want to see a lot more synergy between Fox and Wemby. Look, we only got 5 games of those two guys together last season before Wemby went out with the blood clot. I want to see that kind of develop. I want to see the pick and roll develop, the pick and pop, having that understanding where it's like, Wemby's such a threat in that pick and roll situation that it's going to open up driving lanes for Fox. I want to see him get into the lane. Even when teams go under, I still think they're going to open up opportunities in driving lanes because Wemby's abilities on the roll or popping out is going to open up stuff. I do want him to dial back maybe the number of 3-point attempts just a little bit, and some of the floating outside that he tends to do. But I think there's a level there where I think the synergy between those two guys will carry weight for everybody else because then it'll open up opportunities. Because if Fox is getting into the lane at ease off of Wemby picks, and you know the defense is going to stay attached to Wemby, helps coming from somewhere else. That means that's going to be kick out opportunities for Harrison Barnes, for Champagny, and guys like that. Like this is going to be a really interesting team. I think this is also a team that's probably in need of a consolidation trade because they have so many pieces and so many guys need minutes. They need to try to find opportunities for some of those guys.
I think you nailed it, Mo, with the biggest question with this team. How do Fox and Wemby blend? They make a big investment in Fox when they trade for him and then re-signing him this offseason. And if you look at the numbers last season, of course, it's a tiny sample size, 46 possessions. They scored only 0.82 points per pick and roll, with De'Aaron Fox having a screen set for him by Victor Wembanyama. Of the five most frequent combinations Victor's had over his career, Chris Paul, 556 plays
Well, that's
together.
not fair because Chris is like a freak.
Of course, and I'm just, it's just
Yeah,
worth
yeah,
juxtaposing
yeah,
it against
yeah, of
the
course, of
very
course.
tiny, small initial impressions. Like Trey Jones, non-shooter; Jeremy Sohan, non-shooter; Stephon Castle, non-shooter; De'Aaron Fox, inconsistent, up and down shooter, above average at best, sometimes below average. But with Victor, Chris Paul has really been his only super potent pick and roll partner so far in his NBA career. And with Fox, again, only a handful of games, only 46 possessions. But what were your very, very early impressions of that combination together? And in what ways do you feel like they need to improve in order to become that great combo like he was with Chris Paul?
Yeah, I honestly, I think it comes down to just chemistry and time. Look, Fox's shooting would be key, right? I'd love the ability for Fox to be able to come off the pick and just drill a three anytime a team goes under, but like that's not really who De'Aaron Fox is. It's not consistent enough or hasn't been through the course of his career for us to feel comfortable with it. It's him getting in down into the paint and those opportunities. I think that with time, I think we'll see them getting used to it. Where I think the thing with Wemby is he's going to have to decide when am I going to pop and when am I going to roll, right? And I think those are the things in that pick and roll with Fox is going to make a difference because I bet you in the long run when we look at it when we get a larger sample size, he's going to pop way more when Fox is setting the screen versus rolling because Fox is going to try to get downhill in those situations. So that's going to be interesting. But I'm not against it where if he gets it back on the pop, pump fake drive, if it's not a wide open three, just attack right off the catch and get in the lane with his long strides and things like that. Like I'm excited for this team. I think this is going to be a bit of a bounce back year for Fox and for the Spurs in general. I just think when you look at it with Fox in the sense of like, look, the situation in Sacramento was insane. Fire Mike Brown. He demands a trade. They send him to San Antonio, and now boom, he's on the way. He's playing with Victor. Oh, 5 games later, Victor's out. Like it's a tough sort of scenario to kind of be in and figure all of this stuff out. He has a lot of stability now, so there's no excuses, right? We know the situation set in San Antonio with Mitch Johnson as the coach. I thought he did a good job, as the interim for taking over for Pop and now ready to roll. I think this is a good runway for him. I think we're gonna be surprised by how well they do in the pick and roll. I think their pick and roll numbers will go up.
Hmm. See, I'm a little bit less optimistic as you know because of the shooting. You get Sohan and Castle and Harper and Keldon Johnson. Like there's a lot of iffy shooters on this team, including Fox himself, who's always been up and down. I just can't help but think at some point this season the lack of shooting is going to be a problem for the Spurs, especially for a team that you want them to take a leap this season, that you want them to feel like, okay, yeah, like they're definitely on the rise. That's obvious. There's no doubt this team's on the rise. But to me, I just worry about the shooting ability. I know Spurs fans are like, you're saying it again with Fox, Castle, and Harper together. But like, yeah, I do think it's going to be a thing with these three. And how do you put this combination together? And you said it in passing earlier, Mo. To me, this is a team that's going to be in need of a consolidation trade, packaging multiple pieces together in order to get a piece that makes perfect sense for them. And, we talked about Lauri Markkanen as a trade target this season. Like, to me, Lauri Markkanen is one of the types of guys that if I'm the Spurs, I'm like, yes, sign me up. Bring me Lauri Markkanen because of the shooting ability and everything he does on ball, off ball, motion, movement, passing. Like, Lauri Markkanen fits anywhere, and he brings exactly what the Spurs need with his shooting ability in the front court. So I that's where I kind of come down with. I think gonna need a trade, in part because of the lack of shooting, and Victor and De'Aaron Fox aren't going to be as potent as they should be able to be on paper with Fox's speed and downhill attacking, and Victor being the alien that he is. Those guys should be one of the best combinations in the league. I don't think the roster around them is quite exactly what it needs to be for them to reach their potential. And that's where a trade's going to have to come in at some point this year or next summer.
Yeah, and I'll say I'll put this though to you too. Beyond the pick and roll, I think they could do a lot of damage in dribble handoff games with the two of them.
Oh
You
yeah.
know, in that area, I almost think I'd rather Wemby initiating a dribble handoff with Fox in that situation than just straight pick and rolls with Wemby coming to set the ball screen for Fox. I think there's going to be a lot of different things and a lot of different iterations. The shooting's always going to be a problem, right? We knew that kind of going into it. Hey, this is a difficult team shooting wise, and some of the struggles, especially when they had to go. Listen, they get the second pick. It's Dylan Harper, no matter what, right? Still questionable as a shooter. Stephon Castle was, I still think, a great selection, but yeah, we know the question marks as a shooter and things like that. I think now they got to start figuring out where they're going to get the shooting from. I think they'll pull it together. I think they'll cobble it together enough to be a playing team. I don't necessarily look at them as being a contender, or if everything breaks perfectly, they'll be a top 6 team, but I don't see that happening. I see them making the leap in terms of going from, hey, we're competing, to being a playing team. Because if they're healthy, the other side of it is they're going to be really damn good defensively. I think when you have,
I,
the situation with Wemby, then
oh
you
yeah.
have Castle. I think they're going to be really good defensively that can make up for the lack of shooting.
Oh yeah, I think there's no doubts their defense could be top 5, top 10, top 2, top 3 this year. I think that's a real possibility if Victor's playing 75 plus games for certain. And they have a lot of good supporting defensive pieces around him as well. But you got to score too, and we'll see what their offense looks like around him. Let's talk about the New Orleans Pelicans, Mo, to close out our Southwest Division preview. The Pelicans, not such a good team, but they're an interesting team considering the position that they're in here. They add Jordan Poole, sign Kevon Looney, a veteran, Sadiq Bey as well. They lose CJ McCollum, lose Kelly Olynyk, Bruce Brown as well. Their drafts, they take Jeremiah Fears, they trade up for Derek Queen, they draft Micah Peavy in the second round. So the Pelicans now, they're not a playoff team. They want to ideally compete, but in the Western Conference, they're not a serious team by any means. But their rotation, you look at the names on paper, just the names on paper. Missy at center with Kevon Looney backing him up, Zion, Herb Jones back healthy, hopefully, Trey Murphy, Jordan Poole, Jordan Hawkins, Jeremiah Fears, Derek Queen is a rookie. There's interesting names on this roster. But to me, I look at this team and I don't think anything makes sense here. To me, I don't think anything makes sense on this team, with Poole being a guy who improved a bit last year in Washington, but has not shown winning qualities. To me, if you are actually trying to win with Zion Williamson, I feel like this whole roster is just a big incomplete, just a huge, big incomplete, where Trey Murphy is really the only guy that you'd want to hang on to. And other than that, it's like, what can you feel certain about on this team, Mo? Nothing.
Well, like, it's a good thing though, Kevin, at least that they have their draft pick next year. Oh, wait a minute. I mean, like,
Mo, Mo,
that's the situation they're
why?
in.
Why?
That's just
Why did they
I
do that?
I don't
Why?
know. This is the most confusing team, I think, in the NBA. Like, the things that
Yes.
frustrate me, there are times I look at teams and I go like, okay, I I see what you're doing. I don't agree with it, but I understand what you're doing. I understand your strategy is. I look at this Pelicans team and how they've kind of built this team, and the moves they've made, and I have no clue what the plan is. right? Like, because this team is not going to compete in the West for a playoff spot. Like, it's just not. We Zion's injury risk is always up there. I like Missy. Missy's been really good. Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. I really like those guys. I think those are really good pieces. Jordan Poole, you alluded to it. Like, actually had a pretty decent year in Washington. Nobody watched because it was Washington, but I think it's the situation. I'm just being honest, guys.
I know.
It's just a situation that you're in where he comes in and it's like, I don't even see the point. And then you draft Jeremiah Fears, who I like, but I'd rather just, hey, let's just turn it over to Jeremiah Fears. Let's live with his mistakes and go with it. But now it's going to be hamstrung with Jordan Poole in front of him. He's not going to get enough minutes to really kind of develop and show that stuff. I'm not sure how much Queen can play with Zion. Like, that's a situation that, like, this is a team where it's just like, you guys have a lot of pieces, but you have no idea what you're doing and have no idea how to put it together. And it's in a sense of like, I don't know what you're going to do as if you're Willie Green, in terms of how you play, how you run through, who are you running your offense through? It's probably Zion, but at the same time, Jordan Poole's going to want to jack up a lot of shots. You're going to have a lot of, you need to make sure you're taking care of opportunities, getting opportunities for Herb Jones and Trey Murphy. Like, I feel like this is just a really weird situation to be in.
If you're the Pelicans, Mo, are your intentions to flip Zion at some point, no matter how the year's going for him?
Yeah, it's funny. One of my first appearances on your show here, we talked about that it was time to trade Zion. Like, I think the hope is that, hey, Zion's going to be, starts the season really well after, 30 something games, 40 games. We can try to flip him at the deadline, is I think the hope. And then Queen can kind of replace him right after that is the hope. And by the way, what's unfair to Derek Queen is he's going to be held up or compared to whoever gets drafted in his, next year with that pick, whether it's the actual Pelicans pick or the Milwaukee pick that conveys to Atlanta. They're going to constantly, that's going to be an albatross around his neck, of like, we traded this pick for this guy. And no matter how good he is, I mean, he has to really deliver on another level. And he's just not set up to. He's not set up to succeed. He's going to be playing behind Zion unless they find a taker for a trade. Which, by the way, Kevin, I don't know anybody that's really going to give up a whole lot for him when we know his injury history and all the problems that come with it. Like, I just feel like they're in a difficult spot
It's an
that they
impossible
created.
spot
That they created.
they created, and a brand new front office has made it worse with that trade moving up for Derek Queen. The fact you gave up a swap, not just your own first, but a swap first involving the Bucks next year, so it has some flexibility if for some reason things went really, really wrong with the Milwaukee this year. The fact you give that up to move up for Derek Queen, who fell on the draft a bit, who has a lot of major questions about his conditioning, his weight, his defense, his ability to stretch the floor, his maturity level. He's a very, very raw player, Derek Queen is. And I think this year, I mean, I hope Pelicans fans are patient with him. But at the same time, as you said, Mo, the expectations and the pressure on him, considering the amount they gave up for him, is going to be significant. And it's a less than ideal situation with him next to Zion Williamson. And look, with Zion, he has 3 years left on his deal. 39, 42, $45 million in the final 3 years of that deal. It's not untradeable, but when you think about the teams that would want to do it, it's either a team that's desperate, where there's nobody else out there, a team that feels like this is our best option, our only option to try to optimize our chances at a championship, or it's a team kind of like you, where like you're wandering a bit, you don't actually have an identity, you're figuring things out, and you're like, I'll try this pair of parents on and see how it fits. That's what it could be with Zion if a deal actually happens. But if you're the Pelicans, that's the difficulty with the Zion trade. What are you going to get back for him at that point? Like, it might just be that it's worth just keeping him and hoping he stays healthy for 82 games some year, and that things pan out, that Trey Murphy takes a leap, and that Herb Jones stays healthy, and that you're one of the biggest surprises in the whole NBA, because it wasn't too long ago, Mo, that I was writing and, talking on the pod about how I was very optimistic about the Pelicans' future. I think it was 2 seasons ago now. That feels like a lifetime ago, but it's not that long ago. There was a lot to feel good about with this team, and Trey Murphy has made immense progress. Herb Jones, hopefully he can stay healthy. There's some good things with this Pelicans team. It's just hard to feel good about any of it when you look at the blend of it, the mix of it together. And on top of that, your best player, there's no certainty that he's going to play over 25, 35 games at all in an individual season. So it's very hard to build with such an unstable star as the foundation in Zion Williamson, no matter how good some of the other young guys look.
I mean, that's it, right? Like, I don't know what you do going forward and how you build. And and again, they've just dug themselves a deeper hole, to go get Queen. And it's just like, I don't know what's the situation. I don't know how they plan out of this. I don't know what the timeline for this team to start really kind of mattering. There was so much excitement when they drafted Zion. Obviously, injuries and things got in the way of it all. But like, there's just not like, I don't know what the future holds for the New Orleans Pelicans, in the sense of like, I just don't know where they're going, and I can't say like you could see the light at the end of the tunnel for them.
Yeah, it's tough. It's very tough for the Pelicans, Mo. Well, appreciate you joining me to preview the Southwest Division, talk Eurobasket as well this week, and the Kawhi Leonard news. Appreciate it, man. Let people know where they can find your stuff.
Well, I'm writing for Bleacher Report again, so I have something coming out, I think, around this week. Yes, I think something happened this week. But more importantly, I am creating videos now. I'm covering the NBA this season with Offside alongside guys like Jason Concepcion. We got super smart creators with us. You can follow us on socials everywhere at Join Offside. It's going to be a new sports app content. Excuse me. It's going to be new sports app content. I'm working on like the phrasing, folks. So work with me on this one for smart creators. You're gonna have a lot of fun. Check us out at Join Offsides on the socials, and then you can sign up to the wait list to join the app once that comes out. We're gonna be doing a lot of great stuff. There's gonna be a ton of content through the course of the season.
Appreciate it, Mo. Thank you so much for joining me, and enjoy the lasting weeks of the NBA offseason, man.
Thank you for having me.
Big thank you again to Mo for joining me today. Be sure to check out the Yahoo Sports Network. That's our brand new streaming TV channel. That's right. We got a TV channel now. It's the Yahoo Sports Network, and that's available to stream on leading fast services. It's also streaming 24/7 on yahoosports.tv, and that's where you can catch all of our shows on your phone or your browser. So check out the Yahoo Sports Network.